All right, it's 6 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and open our public meeting for this evening. We have 5 people that signed up to speak. We're going to adhere to the same rules that we use for any of our public forums. You have 5 minutes to speak, and Mr. Shaw, I believe you're first this evening.
Thank you, guys. I likely won't take up 5 minutes, but I just wanted to thank you all for hearing our. My wife and I are the owners of 5708 Grand Central Avenue. We're hoping to restore it back to a storefront. I wanted to thank you all for hearing our request for zoning amendment. I guess a little bit of the history of this building. My wife and I had first looked at buying the Vitrolite building and realized that there were a lot of issues with it, being that the entire building took up the lot. So we kind of had given up on restoring that historic building, and my son was about 14 or 15 at the time, reached out, found the guy who owned that building, 5708, and then asked him at the time if he'd be interested in selling it. So at 15, he was trying to negotiate the purchase of this for his mother. But at the time, he wasn't quite ready to sell it. And later we saw it come on the market. We contacted him, put it under contract. Once we started getting into the title of it, we recognized that it had been zoned R1 in 1997. And the owner of the building in 1997 was the individual we bought it off of's aunt, and she was really elderly, and she was the one that had the last business there in the 90s. It was a craft store. So he seemed to think that his mother or his aunt had probably gotten the notice for the zoning that was happening in 1997. She was incredibly elderly, didn't call, didn't check in on it or anything. So it was rezoned in 1997 to R1, preventing its use to be put back as a business. So for the last 26 years, it's been vacant. We're the first ones, I think, that have had the desire to move forward and restore it, and it's going to take a significant amount of money to restore it, and we'd just like to move forward knowing that it could be used as a business. So that being said, historically, the building was built in 1944, 9 years after Vienna was incorporated. From there, it's served the majority of its life, serving the Vienna residents and surrounding community as a grocery. Then up into the 80s and the 80s and 90s, it became a craft store. So we purchased the building November 10th, but prior to that, we had entered into a discussion with the city about the possibility of rezoning it on September 1st with the prior owner. Then December 19th, we got a approval from the Vienna City, or a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council to have it rezoned. If y'all know where the building is, it's 100% recognizable as a business. So we understand that there's a collective concern about vape shops primarily, but other businesses that would probably not be to the benefit of the citizens of the citizens of Vienna. But we've volunteered restrictive covenants, knowing when we had entered into the discussions with the Planning Commission prior to us closing. We recognized that there was a desire to protect that building from becoming eyesores, non-productive businesses, non-helpful businesses. So we put restrictive covenants in the deed that exclude that building from ever becoming a cafe or a casino, vape shops, cannabis dispensaries, adult bookstores, nightclubs, It also can become a bar. And that, coupled with its proximity to the Vienna Church of Christ across the road, will continue to protect this building to ensure that it's reestablished as a reputable place in Vienna's history. So that's really all I have. If y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I'm not sure if that's...
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Before we bring up the next person, I would like to have Mr. Skogstad read those covenants that you mentioned, sir. This is an official copy of the deed as it's recorded, so if Russ would read that section, I think that would maybe answer some questions.
Yeah, and I have a copy if anybody wants it, and I'm happy to leave it with you.
I have a copy of the deed here, and I'll just read the restrictions. It says, should the property be zoned within the city limits of the city of Vienna, West Virginia as C1 or commercial, then and only then shall the following restricted covenants apply and exist so long as said property remains within the city limits of Vienna, West Virginia and remains so zoned to C1 commercial. The real properties described herein shall not be utilized for the purposes and operation of a restaurant where more than 50% of the sales originate from the sale of alcoholic beverages, also known as a bar, any type of cannabis dispensary or the sale of cannabis product, operation of a business solely for the distribution of electronic vapor cigarettes, also known as a vape store, gambling locations, also known as a cafe or perk, for the purposes of selling adult entertainment videos, magazines, or items related to the adult entertainment business, or for the operations of a nightclub which presents adult entertainment. The grantors do hereby covenant that they will execute such further assurances of the said lands as may be requisite, and that's the relevant part. So,
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Lindsay Shaw.
Thanks, Mark. So I appreciate all of you coming in this evening and doing this for us. There has been great question as to what is going in, I guess, first. I run a women's ministry where I give women clothing at no charge at all. I don't ask for any kind of stipulations. I trust that they need it and that they can come see me. It's done by appointment, so it's not a heavy flow of traffic if that's a concern. And I know this is just for the now, but maybe that now helps just to have an idea of what will be going in there in the immediate future. But it's doing good things. I've been running about a year now and have seen over 100 women come through, but the last little piece that is still holding kind of the image of shame is that I'm still in a basement, currently at a medical facility. They've granted me some space there and they've taken a little bit of it back. So this is kind of the next step, and it's hopefully going to do things that are great for our community, and it's fed by our community. All the women in our community have donated the clothes that let this even be a possibility. So thank you.
Amy Rhodes.
What I want to talk about also is the 5708 Grand Central Avenue property, which is what we're here for. The West Virginia Code 8872 says before amending the zoning ordinance, the governing body, with the advice of the Planning Commission, must find that the amendment is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. It goes on to say if it isn't consistent, then the governing body, with the advice of the Planning Commission, must find that there has been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area involved, which were not anticipated when the comprehensive plan was adopted, and those changes have substantially altered the basic characteristics of the area. I want to state that in the two Planning Commission hearings on this, at no time was a comprehensive plan discussed. Mr. Shaw did bring up one area of the comprehensive plan that he felt applied to that, but there was never any discussion about the comprehensive plan and if this zoning was consistent with that. The ordinance in Vienna states that the zoning ordinance shall promote the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the public. And the state code states that it also must promote those things. In going through the comprehensive plan, how does this turn in? Turn on here? Here it goes. These are the areas of the comprehensive plan that support not rezoning that property. The first is the future land use plan. It states that, that the city must provide for land uses throughout the city of Vienna that are generally compatible with each other. The second is under future land use strategies. It states work with the area roundtable to recruit new businesses to the town center. The third, under future land use strategies, is commercial uses should be adequately buffered from adjacent residential living areas. This would include the use of berms, landscaping, fencing, and the appropriate siting of structures. The next is under residential living areas. It says it is important that existing neighborhoods be protected and improved. The next is living areas should not contain uses that are incompatible. And incompatible is residential and commercial next door to each other. This planning commission and the zoning officer must be vigilant to keep activities that are disruptive to neighborhoods out of the residential living areas. It says to provide a range of housing to meet the needs of different households. And that property on Grand Central, that bottom floor would be an excellent apartment. There are apartments and buildings like that all over the country, some in urban areas, some in small areas, but it could be adapted for that. And the housing study that was recently completed stated that there's a dire need for housing and rentals in this area. States that provide for effective transition between residential living areas and the adjoining areas. Provide for effective buffering techniques and standards in the zoning and land development ordinance. The next, a mixed-use overlay district that could be used both in the Grand Central Avenue Commercial District and in the older Vienna downtown area. The next is economic development has numerous interrelationships. The main one being making improvements to the Grand Central Avenue Commercial Strip. The future land use plan shows the interrelationship of the various land uses in the city, including the town center, residential living areas, commercial areas, industrial and community areas. Land uses are established that are compatible with each other. And
Ms.
then
Rhodes, your
yes.
time is up.
Let's see if I can get this organized so I know where I stopped.
I'm sorry, I can't read the writing on the next one. Barbara, Gelpi? Okay, that's fine. No, ma'am.
It's unfortunate that we couldn't have looked at rezoning before you purchased the property and invested money, because then it would have been a sure thing. I'm concerned. That property is quite literally my backyard. I admire your use of the community to promote people who have needs. And we need to talk, because unfortunately I'm a little bit of a closed horse and I think I can help you, okay? Would be delighted to do so and further that project. But I cannot say that I'm in favor of this, because it is my backyard. And as things go now, I have a certain peace about the people that are coming and going in the area. Yes, I have concerns about what might be sold, because just as this zoning can change in the future, there might be an attempt to zone for something else. You may sell the property on down to somebody who gives you this, we're going to do these really good things, and then doesn't want to do that and wants to do something else. I understand about the prohibitions that you put in the deed, and I appreciate that. I also think I heard that no more than 50% of the income can come from the sales of alcohol. That means 50% of it could. Not that you would, but that's a possibility. As math people pick up those things, okay? So I have to say, as somebody who would be intimately affected by this, can we help them find another property for this good work, and maybe do something else to help them use that property fitfully for the community? I just learned I'm going to be a grandmother. Hallelujah. That took long enough. I see my grandchildren playing in the backyard and people coming and going. And I'm concerned. I'm just very concerned. Not just the contents of what would be in the building, but the coming and going, the push of the property into the public eye as a notable property where people come and go. It becomes a landmark. And I just ask you to think about the little kids in the neighborhood. Please, I'm sorry. That's where my heart is, okay? So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
How long have you lived where you live?
About 6 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So you say your backyard, are you on Grand Central, or exactly? I'm trying to orientate myself.
I'm 503 57th Street.
Okay.
And so there's my house, then there's another house. Now I've lost the name, forgive me, I'm a little stressed. The gentleman that lives in the next house, and then the very next one is this. And the way that the yards are, it's just from here to the window, okay, to the parking, you know. So it's not far, okay? Anything else? I might know another answer.
This is February 64.
Oh, listen, at 8, I'm 60. Forget the negative thing.
Judith, please go.
Councilperson Williams notified me of this, a whole bunch of us of this, on Facebook last night. So I'm not as well prepared as I should be. But I drove by there today, and it was obviously a store at one point with living quarters above. I was surprised it was ever put into an R1 zone. It shouldn't have been. But what will you do about it now? So with Grand Central as busy as it is, I calculated that on the Grand Central level, there were 4 to 6 parking spots only. I didn't go up to the upper level to see how many parking spots were there. It looked like the living quarters had access to, on the upper level, directly out. The The building is built into a hill that rises sharply. But I had questions about that. I had questions that there's no sidewalk allowing people to walk if they have to park. And one of the people that was making comments on this Facebook page was, they said we needed to be able to walk to stores. Well, this is not going to be a store you walk to. It's going to be a store you drive to. Grand Central is too busy. Then the other thing I have questions about is sort of this spot zoning. The Dairy Queen wasn't supposed to be where it was, and when it was sold, instead of the non-conforming use being stopped, it was allowed to continue with the vape spot. There are a couple of nice lots on Grand Central. On 55th Street, there's a big vacant lot, church and a parking lot across the street, and an apartment block, and apartment blocks further down the street on 55th Street. Why not put a building in there? What about the big lot of, I think it's just south of the golf course on the other side of the street? Could be developed. I think that makes people uneasy. People who buy homes and put a lot of money in the homes want to feel secure that their zoning is going to stay intact for their safety, for their comfort, and for their property values. So I think that before you rezone this place again, I think you have to consider what you want to do with West Virginia or with Vienna and stand firm. And also, if you're going to have people walking to shopping stores, you're going to have to finish putting in sidewalks and bike lanes. Excuse me. I'm sorry I wasn't as organized as I should be.
Any questions from council? All right, then I'll declare the public hearing closed. We will reconvene at 6:30 and start our regular council meeting.